dead, and my name all the clowns deride. I broke a great tradition, and you would pay admission to love every clown who
Hi everyone, happy Valentine's! And thank you for coming. My name is Julien, and I would like to invite you all to close your eyes and take a deep breath and let go of all the worries and just fill your hearts with love. And think of, I would like you to hold a person that you love the dearest. It could be the person who's sitting next to you, it could be your family, it could be a friend, it could be a dog, it could be someone who died. Hold it inside of you. And feel the love that is within you. And try to imagine that love is starting expanding. Through your body, through your heart. And to the whole room. And we will set an intention that after this concert, when this concert finishes, this feeling of love will multiply 100 times.
Intimacy. And my first to the boy who made everything confusing. You were my first close friend, my first teacher of intimacy, and my first heartbreak. Growing up with you in my nanny's home, I admired everything about you. For your confidence, your beauty, the ease with which you moved through the world. You were my best friend in the world and someone I looked up to. You were my world. I remember I waited hours every day for you to come back from school, and I set up all the games that I want us to play together. You showed me things that no one else dared to. Intimacy, curiosity, and the thrill of secrets. I still remember us hiding under the table during dinner, or in the living room while my nannies cooked. Always on the edge of being discovered. It was terrifying and exciting, and I trusted you completely. But then, there were moments that broke me. Like that day when you refused to walk beside me because you thought I looked ugly. You walked so far ahead, and I remember running home and crying into my pillow. Wonder what was so wrong with me. That moment has left me wounded, and a scar has left on me. You were the love of my life at a time when I didn't know how to love myself. You were a mirror, reflecting my deepest desires and insecurities. But I don't hold resentment anymore. I see that now we were just a kid, navigating something far bigger than either of us could understand. I release you now. I no longer need to measure myself against your shadow or hold on to the pain of the longing and rejection. You were just a part of my story, and your chapter has long finished. Thank you for the lessons, for the memories, and for showing me what I needed to find within me. I let go of you, so I can live my life anew. With fondness, Julien. To the boy who led me into the wild. It took me 10 seconds to say yes. 10 seconds between the life I thought I was living and the one that's every moment is made out of miracles. 10 seconds between crying on the street of Paris and following you south all the way to the Mediterranean on the bike. You with your beautiful blonde hair and your purity and innocence saying, "Come with me." And me, just with my instant gut reply saying, "Yes." And so we went through vineyards where we stole fruits like children, through quiet roads that stretched into forever in the dark forest, through rainstorms that soaked our clothes until we were nothing but shivering skin and laughter, and bathing in the cold in the river like wild things. We slept in our tent with a fire that you've lit, and our breath warmed the tent in shivering cold winter. And I remember we stayed at the parents of your friend in the grand mansion in Versailles, where we were dancing to jazz and drinking wine and eating steaks and loving in a bed covered with rose petals. And I also remember we lived in a Christian community in the middle of the mountain, and we chant and pray. And in the night we cuddled to sleep in the dormitory. And I remember we were in the most beautiful medieval town that were protected by fortress, and buying cheese and organic vegetables in the local market. I remember the firelight against your skin, the waves of your breath in the space between words, the way we turned philosophy into pillow talk, unraveling the mysteries of love as if we had known it for longer than a moment. I also remember the way your hands trace mapped across my body, as if learning the roads we had yet to travel, that you don't quite really know the way, and you do know how to get there, with confidence, with passion and determination. And I remember the ways of you that makes me feel so safe, like tying a stone on the leg of a phoenix. I fly with you. And by the time that I left you, I could never know that was the last time. Until now, I never loved so recklessly. Or maybe I never really loved you at all, and I still love with this recklessness. Just not only you, but to life. With all the reckless love in the world. Julien. this is my vow to you. I vow to love you not like a fairy tale, but like an epic of Tolstoy, long enough to last the years and still not finish the first volume. I vow to stand beside you, not as a perfect lover, because we both know that I'm impossibly flawed, but as someone real, someone who will stand beside you when you need me. But of course, at the same time, I'm also keeping my boundaries so that you still have to do the dishes and never leave my bathtub stinky. Otherwise, I would have to steal all your blanket in the middle of the night and slide my cold feet into your warm bed. I vow to have adventure with you, not just across mountains and rivers, but through many, many more uncharted piles of dirty laundry itself. And when the path is steep, I will climb inside of you, cause I know that would fix everything, at least temporarily. And when we are lost, I will not fear, because being lost with you is still being home. I vow to listen to the words that you say, except the nonsense. And when you start sighing, I will kindly put on my headphones so that this can ensure the longevity of our marriage. And of course, I'll learn you over and over again anew, as if you were a language that I will never stop translating. I vow that I will reach for your hand even when I'm hangry, and I will always make you a cup of tea when I know you've had a hard day, and also in the normal day. And I always cook for two even though we are fighting, and I will keep showing up even when love feels like work. I vow to change with you, to let love become something that grows, something that bends, but I'll do the effort to make it well erected. And when time has its way with us, when our hands are softer, when our laughter has deepened into something slower, when our anus slowly prolapsing, I vow to look at you and still see the same spark that led me here, standing in front of you and saying, you are still very cute to me. to the one I once vowed to tolerate forever. Well, here we are. Turns out Tolstoy was right. Some stories do go on too long. I thought our love would be an epic, but somewhere between chapter 3, the honeymoon phase, and chapter 27, why do you so stubbornly keep loading the dishwasher like that? The plot got a little predictable. I vowed to stand beside you, and I did. I stood beside you when you put the wrong thing into the recycling bin again. And I stood beside you when you left the socks in place the socks should never be. And yes, I stood beside you when you left my bathtub stinky. Until one day, I snapped, stole the blanket, and I realized that I've reached my final straw. I vowed to venture with you, not just through mountains and rivers, but through the vast trenches terrain of dirty laundry. And yet somehow it was always me doing the climbing while you supervised from your couch, farting and watching your football, and not to mention the skip bumps. And as for getting lost together, I thought we would be lost in the poetry of love. Not you always walk so further ahead of me, and I cannot find you in the ocean of people in central London, and to keep calling you for half an hour until you pick up. I vowed to listen to you, and I did. To your dreams, to your worries, and your philosophical amusing at 2 a.m. But as promised, I also put on my headphones when the nonsense became too unbearable. That at least kept us together longer than we had any right to be. And I vowed to let love grow, and I did. I even vowed to make sure things stayed well erected. But let's be honest, some efforts are more appreciated than the others. And when time had its way with us, when our hands grew softer, when our laughter slows, and when our backs ached from simply existing, one thing remains. You are still very cute to me. Annoying, exasperating, impossible, but cute. So here's to us, our love, our story, our ridiculously wonderful, maddening years together. I live with no regret, only gratitude. Just sadly didn't wait until our anus prolapses. Probably for the better. So at least we now can go back to Grindr and find some comfort. And maybe, just maybe, one last stolen blanket for old time's sake. Fondly, me. to you after all this time. It's funny, isn't it? How love changes shape but never really disappears. How, after all these years, and after a year without talking, I still find myself writing to you. I used to think that love was something grand, a Tolstoy and epic, sweeping and endless. Then I thought love was a battlefield, or at least an endless debate over proper dishwasher loading techniques. Then for a while, after countless distractions, I thought love was just over. But I was wrong. Love never really passes. It lingers. It settles into the quiet corners of us, like dust in an old house. Subtle, stubborn, and impossible to fully sweep away. And speaking of quietness, the house has been too much of that lately. Tommy, he had a way of filling space, not just with his voice, but with his sheer being. Now that he's gone, and I find myself making tea for two, only to remember there's no one sitting across from me and drink both of it. I don't say this to be dramatic, it's just one of those odd little facts of life that I never expected about before. Here I am, a little slower, a little more forgetful, still speaking far too loudly everywhere, and still banging on my piano with love and passion, and occasionally exasperation. And strangely, still laughing when I think about how many nights I stole the blankets from you. I think about us sometimes, not with longing, not with regret, but with the kind of fondness that you have for an old, well-worn book, or well-worn shirt, really. It's like something you should have let go of long before it all torn and wrinkled, and you don't really wear it out anymore, but still don't want to throw it away. Because it means a lot. Quite a lot. I don't resent the fight anymore. I don't resent the leaving. I don't even resent the fact that for years I kept making spaghetti your way because I could never quite unlearn it. I have to confess, even reluctantly, some part of you have become me. I used to think that when love ended, the story ended. But now I know better. The story keeps going, and the perspective also changes. Now I want to tell you, thank you. Thank you for the good years, for the maddening years, for all the ways you made me laugh and makes me feel warm in the heart when I most need it, for teaching me that, in the end, what love actually means. You meant something to me. You did. And you still do. So, wherever you are, if you happen to get this, confine me. Not for anything dramatic, not for anything final. Just for an hour or so for a cup of tea, like the old times. With a heart that is older, a house that is quieter, and a kettle that still whistles. Julien. Come closer. I can't see you properly from here. Or maybe I can. But I just don't want to yell at you. You know, I always thought that I would have something deep to say, as I always did in my show, and stuff that makes people weep and nod in admiration. But here I am, and all I can think about is how cold my feet are. Would you put your hand here? Just for a second, please. Yeah. That's much better. Thank you. Do you remember that night in the vineyard? We were dumpster diving under the stars in southern France. How romantic. It was, wasn't it? And the sea. No, the ocean. I mean, it's the sea, the Mediterranean. And I felt it. Oh, I felt it with you. I did. And you're still here. You always were, even when you were not. Do you love me? Did you love me? I hope. No, I know that you loved me too. You did love me, and I guess I probably did too. So, my love, I'll go on this door, and then I will be there. I'm not afraid. I still remember how it was like when I did that big dose of mushroom. I'm ready. Now, give me your hands again. There. That's perfect. Yes. That's perfect.
I hope you feel full of love or whatever. So there will be wine, and we have prepared a lot of snacks. So we would love to have you to stay, and then we can dance, listen to some music, and chat. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.